The Cowboys are in serious trouble. They have major problems all over their offense, like the offensive line breaking down due to injuries, the lack of any sort of reliable veteran receiving option after Jason Witten's retirement, and of course Scott Linehan running one of the most unimaginative and predictable systems in the league. But even with all of those issues, I do think that the Dallas offense could still be productive if they weren't held back by one seemingly insurmountable obstacle: Dak Prescott. And don't get me wrong, I was tearing out my hair plenty of times for other reasons when watching the tape from that embarrassing performance against the Panthers. Receivers dropping passes, offensive linemen getting beat immediately off the snap, you name it. But don't get it twisted, Dak Prescott was the main problem, and at the end of the day, everything falls back on him. To get some context on Dak's performance though, we first have to talk about everyone's favorite punching bag in the DFW metro area, Scott Linehan. Linehan's game plan against the Panthers defense, at least to me, showed a complete lack of understanding in how Carolina runs their defensive system, and keep in mind that this is a defense that has not seen that much change over the last 7 years, regardless of how many coordinators they've been through. Linehan should know what they're going to run by now, and yet on tape it looked as though he was just choosing plays at random. Take this 3rd and 12 from late in the first quarter as an example. It's 11 personnel, bunch left, which is fine to me for what it's worth. It's 3rd and very long, so you want to put your receivers in a formation that can get them clean releases to get downfield. That is perfectly normal to me. However, what is not normal is that the 3rd receiver in the bunch is Tavon Austin, who is someone that has only been used in 3 different ways throughout his entire 6-year career: as a target on screen passes, a ball carrier on sweeps, or a decoy on a fake sweep. That's basically it, so when you put him on the field, you're automatically telling the defense that you're going to do one of those 3 things with him. It completely narrows down the playbook, which on 3rd and 12, when you have 0 wiggle room for error, cutting the number of plays that the defense has to worry about is a massive mistake that only makes the offense's job harder. So, because Austin is on the field, Luke Kuechly knows exactly what's going on. He's pointing out the screen pass 3 seconds before the ball is even snapped, and you can see him telling Mario Addison, hey, I've got the screen, you've got the dive, James Bradberry's going to contain the sweep if it actually does go to Austin. But again, remember it's 3rd and 12. If you actually do run a sweep on 3rd and 12, that would be a shocker in and of itself. So faking that sweep in the first place probably wasn't a good idea, because there's no way that Kuechly would believe in a play call that dumb. He knew the screen was by far the most likely option, so you can see him pull that trigger immediately to track it down short of the sticks because he was ready for it and expecting it. So again, I just want to put this play call into context. You're Scott Linehan, it's 3rd and long, your offense has struggled a lot so far today, and rather than trying to put your quarterback in a position to get back on track with the intermediate or deep passing game, you put a gadget player on the field that shrinks your playbook, use him as a pointless decoy on a fake that is too stupid to be believed, and then you expect Cole Beasley to outrun the entire Panthers defense on a play that they saw coming from a mile away. Say what you want about this Carolina defense being awesome, which they are, but it's a lot easier to look good when this is what you're going up against. In a similar vein, I truly can't believe how the Cowboys designed their run game against this Panthers front 7. Anyone that knows anything about Carolina's defense will tell you the same thing. They are a predominantly single high safety system. It's a lot of cover 3, cover 6, cover 1 schemes, and they do that so that they can keep the safety down in the box and outnumber you against the run on nearly every play. They never want to give you a numbers advantage to freely move the ball on the ground, and that goes double for a team like the Cowboys that relies so much more on their run game than anything else. Now, as a result of that, Carolina will take chances in coverage. They'll have their corners out there in man coverage on islands for a big chunk of the game while they sell out against the run. And when they line up like that, which is a lot of the time, the offense has 2 options to still make it work. Either A, they can modify their run game to incorporate some option and zone read elements to even out the numbers inside the box, or B, they can just throw the freaking ball. Dallas did neither of those things, or at least not nearly enough. 12 of Ezekiel Elliott's 15 carries came against stacked boxes where the blocking numbers were not in their favor, and yet it took until almost halfway through the 4th quarter, at the very end of the game, for Scott Linehan to start using some zone read and option concepts to move the ball on the ground. And surprise, surprise, on those 2 carries they got 11 yards and a touchdown. To me, it was too little too late. Every other defense from here on out is going to do the exact same thing to that Dallas offense: pack the box and force Linehan to adjust. But if he doesn't adjust by using more zone read concepts, then nothing will get better. I promise you that nothing will get better if they do not fundamentally change how they approach their run game right now. But beyond all of that, and I know we just covered a lot of ground here on the flaws in the play calling itself, but beyond all of those flaws, there is still one glaring truth that needs to be addressed. Good quarterbacks have the power to make a wrong play call right, and Dak Prescott was just not doing that. We've seen Dak adjust plays at the line. We know he has that power. So when he gets up there and he sees that he doesn't have the numbers to make a run work, where is that adjustment? Where is his command at the line of scrimmage to recognize when a play won't work and change it into something that will? It's not like he has to change every single play, but what kind of system are the Cowboys running where the quarterback doesn't have the freedom to say kill, kill, kill before the snap, look to his front side receivers that are clearly in man coverage with no safety help over the top, give a keyword or a signal to change the play to an over-under rub concept, and then take the easiest touchdown you could possibly imagine? I mean, my god, I saw Sam Darnold doing exactly that 3 weeks ago in the preseason, and I'm supposed to believe that a third-year Dak Prescott can't do that in the regular season? I mean, either he doesn't have the power to make those changes, which is a huge red flag in its own right, or he does have the power and he's just not doing it, which is an even bigger red flag. We can put a lot of the blame on Scott Linehan for an absolutely horrible game plan, yes, but at some point, it's the quarterback's job to help out his coaches and get them into some plays that will actually work. That's what Tony Romo did for multiple years under this same coaching staff, and it's what he helped Dak do as a rookie. And yet as soon as he retired and became a broadcaster, that element of the quarterback taking command of the offense completely left this team. Believe me, that is not a coincidence. But it's not just pre-snap that I had a problem with Prescott's decisions in this game, it's post-snap too. And to illustrate that, I want to show something here that, fair warning, might take a little bit of time to fully get through, but I promise it's going somewhere in the larger point of this piece. This is a sack from almost halfway through the second quarter, and on first glance it really doesn't look like it's Dak's fault. In fact, it looks like the rookie left guard, Connor Williams, just got his lunch money taken by Kollmann short, and there was nothing really Dak could do to avoid him in the pocket, which is technically true. However, that doesn't really tell the whole story. Pay attention to the Panthers' defense as the Cowboys are getting lined up here. It's a pretty clear zone look because you have 3 receivers on one side with only 2 corners, while the third corner in this nickel package is a lone backside with the tight end. If it were man, all 3 corners would likely be matched up with all 3 receivers, so just by alignment we know it's pretty much 100% going to be a zone defense. Now, as soon as Cole Beasley recognizes this, watch him switch places with Michael Gallup. He knows it's zone, he knows what's coming, and you can see him look back to Prescott to let him know that he switched, and Dak confirms that he saw it. So why did Beasley switch assignments here? It's because he knew that the play the Cowboys were running was not going to work downfield against the Panthers' zone coverage, and here's why. Dallas is running essentially a modified sail concept, which means the outside receiver is going to be clearing this deep third corner for an intermediate out or a corner route underneath him from the inside receiver. Meanwhile, either a running back or a slot receiver runs a quick flat route underneath as the check down, and in this case, that's Beasley from the slot. Usually a sail concept in any form is a cover 3 killer, and the Panthers are running a cover 3 here, so you would expect this play to work. But here's the thing, Carolina's cover 3 is not your typical cover 3. Throwing a sail concept against them is just playing with fire, because in their system they use that route concept as bait for interceptions. And this is what I mean by that. Watch Luke Kuechly here. He's playing the hook zone responsibility initially like he normally would, but he also has an even more important responsibility, which is dropping deep and undercutting anything that is run underneath that deep third corner. He slow plays the release from the number 3 receiver, just waiting to see if he cuts inside so he can jam him up, but once it becomes clear that he's releasing downfield, he lets him go while shooting his eyes over to that number 1 receiver outside. He does this because the stem of the number 1 receiver will tell Kuechly what to do from here. If the receiver is stemming inside to the seam or on a post, then he knows that the corner, Dante Jackson, is probably going to go with him inside, so nobody will be there in the deep third to pick up that number 3 receiver running to the boundary. In that case, with nobody else there, Kuechly would just keep sinking with that number 3, abandon his hook zone, and undercut the route for an interception. However, if the number 1 receiver is not stemming inside and he's just running a straight go route down the field, then he knows that Jackson will still be outside with his eyes on the quarterback, and he can just easily stop and drive on it himself from the deep third to make the play. So, to put that in a shorter, simpler way, both Kuechly and Jackson are baiting the intermediate throw on this sail concept, which is usually open, but the determining factor in which one of them gets to spring the trap on that bait is the stem of the outside receiver. If Jackson is drawn inside, Kuechly gets more depth and goes after the ball. If Jackson stays outside, then Kuechly shortens up his drop and Jackson takes it instead. We saw this in action last year against the Dolphins in Week 10. It's another sail concept against the Panthers in a cover 6 combo coverage, and again it's the same thing. Kuechly slow plays the release until the tight end, Julius Thomas, makes it clear that he's releasing downfield. And as Luke identifies that, he reads that the outside receiver is stemming inside, so he knows that the deep third corner won't be over the top to drive on that corner route from Thomas. That means the corner route is now his responsibility, so he doesn't shorten his drop, he just gets as much depth as possible, and that puts him in a great position to undercut this ball and pick it off. Predictably, the Panthers would then capitalize on that turnover and score 4 plays later before the end of the half. So back to this sack against the Cowboys again. We know how the Panthers are going to play this sail concept. We know that if Kuechly isn't baiting it, then at the very minimum the corner will be instead. So this play was never ever going to work from the beginning. Cover 3 system or not, Carolina plays these kinds of route concepts differently from most other defenses. They turn them from easy, reliable completions into risky bait and switch types of throws every single year. Hell, they've done this for literally 7 seasons on film now. It took me all of 5 minutes to find that Dolphins play, and I had never even seen it before. I knew if I just started looking at their interceptions from last season, I would inevitably see this coverage, and I did. This type of coverage is not a new thing for them, and that brings me to my overarching point. Dak should have known that this play was not going to work. Beasley switched spots with Michael Gallup because he knew it was not going to work. He knew that the only likely viable read was the quick throw to the flat with a leverage advantage that could set up some yards after catch and probably get a first down. All Dak had to do was recognize that for himself, shorten up his drop from a 5-step drop to a quick 3, turn, and fire it to Beasley. Instead, he took that full 5-step drop. His eyes were downfield looking for a throw that never had a prayer of being open, especially when throwing it all the way across the wide side of the field, and his rookie left guard couldn't hold up long enough to protect him from his own mistake. Blame Williams all you want, but this one was on Dak. If he can't recognize on tape that the Panthers are playing the exact same coverage against this exact same play that they always have for the last 7 years, then honestly the Cowboys probably lost this game before they even got to the stadium. I cannot count how many times I saw this same story on film in this game. Times where Dak either wasn't seeing the field, wasn't maneuvering well in the pocket, or just flat out wasn't making accurate throws. You can point out the obvious egregious miss to Blake Jarwin where he threw it to the dirt. That's a huge gain off the board at a minimum, or maybe even a touchdown, but it's so much more than that. There was a wide open 90-yard guaranteed touchdown to Cole Beasley on a broken coverage that Dak either saw and completely ignored, or he didn't see it when his eyes were literally looking right at that spot, which to me is even worse. Believe me, that was not the only explosive play opportunity that was totally missed by him though. There was a fourth quarter play in Panthers territory, down 2 possessions, where he inexplicably came off of a perfectly open corner route against an inside leverage defender in a 2-high zone, which is the exact coverage that route is designed to attack, and he just straight up didn't see it. From there, he rolled out of the pocket and looked for Deontay Thompson instead, and don't get me wrong, a 13-yard gain to Thompson moved the chains anyway, but you know what's better than a 13-yard gain with a tough throw on the run? A 20-yard gain that's wide open with your tight end. One snap later, it was the exact opposite problem. He didn't come off of his first read too quickly, he stayed on it way too long despite clearly seeing the linebacker sinking deep to undercut it. Meanwhile, he had Elliott one-on-one in the flat with miles of space to work with. He just kept staring down that first read until it was too late, and by then he had to move around and try to find Beasley as a check down for only 4 yards. Again, to me, that's a touchdown off the board because I don't know about you guys, but I trust Zeke to break a tackle and house that thing 9 times out of 10. I thoroughly believe he would have won that matchup in the flat and got this offense back in the game, but instead they only got 4 yards. I don't mean to pile it on so thick here, and you guys know that I normally like to do relatively positive breakdowns on this channel, but I f***ing hate bad football more than anything else, and Dak Prescott is playing bad football right now. The Dallas Cowboys have a transcendent running back talent to lean on, a great defense, and when they're healthy, a pretty damn good offensive line as well. What they don't have is a quarterback that can make it all work and keep this train on the tracks. Tony Romo was that guy for them for so many years, and I think we're finally starting to see what happens when you don't have Romo there to cover for their deficiencies. I don't want to be an alarmist and say that the Cowboys can't improve, because obviously they can. At the end of the day, it's still a really talented team with a lot of great pieces, but we're in year 3 now with Dak, and he hasn't gotten better yet. I sincerely hope that he does soon, because he's a great leader and I love him as a person, but if we come back to this episode in week 17 of this season and everything that I just said about both Prescott and Linehan is still true, then we've got a problem. Dallas has 4 months to get this fixed, a minimum of 15 more games. If they fundamentally change their approach and make the necessary adjustments, great, more power to them. That's really all I want to see for Dak's sake anyway. But if they don't change, believe me, this reload will turn into an all-out rebuild before you know it, and the Cowboys will have nobody to blame but themselves. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode. I don't do too many shows that are this critical, but I mean, honestly, I was so disgusted by the tape that I was watching this week that there was really no other way to phrase this piece. It was just straight up hard to watch, but in saying that, my pain in watching all of that film could still be your gain, because this week's sponsor, MyBookie, is offering Film Room viewers a huge sign-up bonus of up to 100% on deposits, up to $1,000 with the promo code BRETT. I know a lot of you are probably looking to make a little bit of money off of betting NFL games this season, especially after that huge Supreme Court decision back in May. So what better time to get started than maybe this Sunday night, the primetime game with the Cowboys and the Giants. There's actually a lot of great Week 2 matchups that I'll probably have some money on, to be honest, and I made a good chunk on that Jets game last week that I told you the Jets were going to win. I didn't care that they were a touchdown underdog. I knew that one's coming. Cough, cough, Lions fans that were inside my mentions. So if you want to get in on the Week 2 action, just click on the link in the description below, enter promo code BRETT at sign up, and collect that great sign up bonus on any deposit of up to $1,000. If you're going to bet anyway, you might as well get a little bit of extra out of it. So thank you again for watching. I'll be back next week with another Film Room episode, and I have no clue what it's going to be on yet. I usually don't this time of the week, but hopefully it's something that doesn't piss me off as much as Scott Linehan. So I'll be back next week, and until then, later.